Good evening, Star Wars fans. I just wanted to run some notes by you real fast. First off, how many of you are Christians, whether you're liberal or you're a conservative American? How many of you think that Star Wars is a good Christian-based film series? So out of these 9 Star Wars films, which ones does he mention God in? Can you answer this question? Let us see who answers right. None is the answer. He never mentions God. He forsakes God. He mocks God in them. Not only does he mock God because he doesn't mention God, he mocks God by using the Force, which was described as the will of God to him by me in 1974. When I was 7 years old, he took what he knew and used it and turned it into something else and mocked God, and he mocked the name of an angel. Not only does he mock the name of the angel and then mock God, he describes religion as propaganda. And I'm not just saying that. I'm going to provide the receipts for you right here. So you go on and you watch these interviews. Now listen to this.
The point is that in the very beginning, when you have people worshiping rocks and deer.
Now I want you to pay attention to
what
what he says here in a second.
I believe something's out there. I just don't know what it is. I have no idea.
So he doesn't know what God is. He has no idea what Christianity is. Y'all say he's Christian?
Human psychological needs that have been put together mostly.
What do you mean put together? You mean stolen from parts like you did Star Wars. So he's projecting his
Star
own
Wars and Indiana Jones were basically
stupidity.
put together, especially Star Wars.
Put together. You see that?
Indiana Jones was just done for fun.
Put together.
To entertain
from things he stole from all kinds of places.
There were some messages in there.
Just like I showed you in my other video. And this one, keep watching.
Archaeology and also
here's what he thinks of Christianity.
What we believe in terms of myths and that sort of thing. But the real one is Star Wars, and that was done in the same vein that what I was saying about the patron creates the propaganda, and what I wanted to do was go back to some of the older propaganda.
Listen to him. Listen to him.
Good and evil, but heroes. What makes a hero? What's friendship? What's the idea of sacrificing yourself for something larger? They're all really basic things. They say, well, we don't have to make a movie about that. It's very obvious, but it's actually not.
Shut up.
It's not that obvious to a lot of people unless you have somebody tell you every generation that this is what our country believes in.
Oh, so believing in self-sacrifice is just about our country. It's not about personal sacrifice. So he has to be taught these things, huh?
Where did the idea of Force come from?
The whole thing in Star Wars was to take, ideas, psychological ideas,
think quick,
from social issues, political issues.
Don't tell him you stole it from a 7-year-old kid.
And condense them down into an easy-to-tell story of those stories. The Force basically came from
close your eyes, see?
Instilling all of the
don't look up.
Beliefs, spiritual beliefs.
Shifty eye.
Go all around the world, all through time.
Line.
Finding the similarities.
Line.
And then
scratch your face.
An easy to
nervous tick.
Deal with metaphor for what religion is. And the point is that in the very beginning,
he knows he's lying. He can't even get straight to the point. See?
They called it life force. They called it the Force. That's what it was. And so, where did the name come from? It came from basic life force.
Yeah, You see him look off when he said that? He stole it from a 7-year-old kid, man. Don't swallow this crap for 1 second. He's a liar.
Up to that point, I was feeling very desperate about the whole situation.
Desperate.
I think the only way you can deal with feelings of desperation, and I've had this quite a bit in my career actually. You simply have to put one foot in front of the other and keep going. You put blinders on and just plow right ahead. You can't.
Don't look side to side where you just stole from.
Be affected by any of that. When I was doing American Graffiti,
So he wasn't
I
talking
was still
about
struggling with my I don't want to be a writer syndrome, and
he still watches
had
Star
some good
Wars.
friends of mine that I wanted to write the screenplay.
Ask him.
But they called it life force. They called it the force.
No, he doesn't look off here because he doesn't have to say, hey, where did I get it from? He doesn't answer that.
Which was consistent through all of the
So
societies.
everything's propaganda.
Which is mythology. But to say, what did they all believe? Because they were all, this propaganda
Y'all
was
love
created
Star Wars,
independently.
but it's all propaganda.
And what are the things that they all actually believed? We're talking relationships with your father, relationships with your society, your history, relationships with the gods, all of this stuff.
The gods. Now it's the gods. Not
old,
God, but the gods.
Psychological.
Space opera, that's what it was called when Lee Brackett and Edmund Hamilton used to write for TV and radio and books on science fiction.
Family soap opera.
Now listen.
I mean, ultimately, we call it space opera, but people don't realize it's actually a soap opera.
Shifty-eyed snake, and y'all just
I'm not going to try
eat it up.
They weren't that keen.
How many things in Star Wars
I said, I'm not going to. If I get in there, I'm just going to.
he actually create?
Because they're not going to do what I want them to.
How much did he steal? This is on Charlie Rose's interview.
And it really does come
Here we go with those sideways glances
a simple
again.
Rule of life, which is when you break up with somebody, the first rule is no phone calls. The second rule, you don't go over to their house and drive by to see what they're doing.
No, you just have your cousin get them on the phone.
You don't show up at their coffee shop or the things like you're going to print it. You just say, no, gone, history, I'm moving forward. Because every time you do, and
well, funny, how come he
can't?
How come he can't let go of Star Wars? He's still trying to control it.
The wound again.
Tell me.
And it just makes it harder.
No phone calls. Why is he still trying to control Star Wars?
You, and it's very,
he's contradicted himself.
But you have to just cut it off and say, okay, end the ball game. I got to move on. And
he sold Star Wars to Disney.
Don't. You can't. These are my kids.
He's a liar. See, I'm telling you, he's a liar.
All the Star Wars films.
They were your kids.
Yeah, well, they are. You know, I loved them. I created them. I'm very intimately involved in them, and obviously
also, what happened to letting go of them?
To the white slavers that.
Remember, I told you he called Disney white slavers. There it was.
White slavers.
And I guess his third rule is to sell your soul to Satan and put him in your movie and then steal everything you can to make a movie. Here's more receipts for that.
Lightsabers, bantering robots, the Falcon. They're iconic elements of the very first Star Wars film. But suppose I told you that these elements, the characters, technology, even specific names and plot devices found in 1977 Star Wars, were first conceived decades earlier. Suppose I told you that long before 3PO and R2, a science fiction series from the 1940s contained two strikingly similar bantering robots named Otho and Grag. And some of the most memorable scenes in Star Wars, like escaping through a garbage chute or using telekinetic force to choke a man to death, appeared in sci-fi stories written in 1944, and light swords first appeared in 1933. And these same stories had characters with names like Ben, Owen, Han, and Kessel, and even multiple spaceships called the Falcon.
Kessel Run.
And all of these stories were written by just two people, husband and wife science fiction authors Edmund Hamilton and Lee Brackett. Lee Brackett, often called the Queen of Space Opera, began her career
There's that
in the
word,
1940s,
space opera. That's
writing
what I was
science fiction
looking
stories for pulp magazines like Planet Stories and Startling Stories. She was also a Hollywood screenplay writer, primarily for film director Howard Hawks. Brackett's screenwriting credits include The Big Sleep, starring Humphrey Bogart, Hatari, starring John Wayne, and The Long Goodbye, starring Elliot Gould. Brackett's husband, Edmund Hamilton, is considered one of the earliest writers of space opera. His first short story was published in 1926. Hamilton also wrote hundreds of issues of DC comic books, working on titles such as Superman and Batman. Sometimes Brackett and Hamilton would collaborate. For example, Brackett wrote 3 chapters of Hamilton's novel The Valley of Creation. The husband and wife team co-authored the posthumously published story Stark and the Star Kings. and Brackett freely used elements from her husband's work in her own writing. For instance, after Hamilton wrote a story called The King of Shadows about a lost city inhabited by ghostly shadow people, Brackett wrote a story called The Shadows, which also involved living shadow creatures. Brackett even took character names from Hamilton's stories to use in her own work, like Bray.
Use that short clip without giving credit where credit is due. I'm not George Lucas, so that video clip was from Did Lee Brackett Ghostwrite Star Wars A Theory, and it's on the Star Killers channel. So I'm giving him credit for that clip. Also, the fact of the matter is, it's not just a theory. They gave Lee Brackett credit in the movie Empire Strikes Back. Her name is in the credit. So it's not just a theory that she ghost wrote it. We know that she did. They had so many characters in their books way back. There was a lightsaber. There was even the Force. They didn't call it the Force because he took that from me and Jedi Knights. But anyway, here we go. All of y'all should go to Star Killers channel and watch the full movie. I just posted a clip out of it, and that was it.
Because instead of spending my time doing autographs, I spent my time making movies.
You mean he steals from little kids?
Sure you can.
He steals from little kids.
I had nothing when
Little
I
piece
started.
of shit steals from kids. That's how he gets his money. Steals from all kinds of people. Y'all think he's a good man? Y'all are really
I like my
delusional.
soul, Mr. Lucas.
Look how he treats the common people, man. Just average people.
It's only a few of us, Mr. Lucas.
They're all
please.
dirt under his feet. That's what it is.
Hey, do you have a job for me? I'll work for you if you have a job for me.
Fans only.
I'm willing to work. I'm willing to work. I am a fan, Mr. Lucas. I watched all your movies. I watched every movie.
Mr. Lucas, could you
Go ahead. Pull it out.
to Ian, Mr. You can write our names on it.
Hold on, listen. He's talking. He's going to say something.
You'd be better off putting a hat, sitting on the corner, and just beg like everybody else.
I don't like to beg, though.
So y'all ask his autograph, y'all are beggars.
I'm just asking for autographs, though. I'm
But
asking
he
for
steals
autographs.
from little 7-year-old kids, and it's
Your fans that don't have the, they can't see you, they can't meet you.
My fans for free.
But all your fans can't meet you. No, they can't.
We're not all as fortunate as you to be able to have the creative mind that you have.
You mean a thieving mind?
$200 for something that they can get for free, just so you can make money.
But everyone has to make a living somehow, right?
Not by begging.
So everyone helps each other out. That's how the world goes.
You're begging.
I'm asking.
No, you're not. You're begging.
Can you
But
please?
he
I'm just
stole
asking.
Jedi Knights in the Force from the 7-year-old kid in 1974. He wasn't begging, he wasn't stealing, he was perfectly honest.
Nah.
Yeah.
Wow.
$200 a signature, so why don't you just go out and get a job?
Or you could just plagiarize and steal from a bunch of people and make movies like he did. Let's not forget this. Why does that sound so familiar? Sure sounds awful familiar. Really familiar. This is Mars, by the way. This is the Mars planet on the planet suite, and where you can look it up yourself. Let's see. 5 minutes into the Mars planet suite song. This part. The whole planet suite goes through Jupiter, Mars, Venus, all of them. You go and listen, and you'll catch clips from Star Wars. He should have been sued by whoever owned the rights to the planets. George Lucas. He stole almost all of Star Wars' music from the planet suite. Again, that's just the Mars part of the planet suite. Look up Jupiter, Venus, and all the other ones. Yoda in the Voynich manuscript. And let's not forget the characters he stole from Star Trek. and then used that one for Admiral Akbar, this one from Star Trek that he used for one of the bounty hunters, the Dancing Green Lady, and the Martini Beriev again, the Russian prototype submarine hunter that actually had 2 working models made, and one still exists. There it is next to the Millennium Falcon. Looks just like it, doesn't it? Again, I have witnesses that he took Jedi Knights of the Force for me in 1974, and I have a witness who actually worked for Lucasfilm that overheard him say it. Again, you can live in denial all you want, and I've had the same amount of disdain from liberals and conservatives alike. They don't like the idea that their God, George Lucas, is corrupt, and that's what you might as well worship him as God, because that's how you act about it, and you don't want to listen to the truth. So there you go. And also just ignore the evidence he actually stole from me, and with his buddies helped Bob Frederick. And actually, I still believe that Disney ended up with it, and that's how they blackmailed him into selling them Star Wars. That's why he called them white slavers, and why he's sitting there in denial talking about giving up control of something at the same time he won't give up control of Star Wars, yet he sold it to Disney. Ironic. I guess next you'll tell me Mr. Frederick doesn't exist. I have a copy of the police report with his name on it, okay? Bob Frederick did tell me he worked for the FBI. I believe he did spy on me. I believe that someone, either him or someone he was working with, stole my evidence, and that Disney ended up with it. By the way, all you Star Wars fans who've made really rude and nasty comments to me, you're going to rue the day, because you'll have to come to me to find out about the real Jedi Knight and the real Force. I'm going to treat you exactly the same as you did me. One thing did always puzzle me. Why did he have Jack get me to come over and get on the phone with him when he'd already heard me say Jedi Knights in the Force? Why didn't Jack just give it to him then and he just use it? Why did he bring me to 5707 Robinwood Road to get on the phone where he told me he was going to make me rich and famous, and lied, of course? The answer is easy. He wanted to know who else knew, and was it someone else's idea that he was stealing, and it would backfire on him. A couple last points I wanted to make is, first, that he talked about religion as propaganda, and not that there was a real God and that God existed, but it was propaganda, and then that he used propaganda in Star Wars, therefore not giving credit to God. And again, the Force was also the will of God, and he knew that. And also, if that such a power did exist, then it would be the will of God. He gave no credit there. He sat and told you that he put Star Wars together, as in parts that already existed. He took from other people. So again, this clown is admitting not only that he didn't have any morality, because it had to be taught to him. That he didn't have any sense of good in himself, that it only had to be taught to him. You see what I'm saying? He does not care about anything or anyone, just himself. But not only that, but that religion is propaganda, and he put the Star Wars together as propaganda. Is he saying that he created a new God for you? That's the question of this video. Or maybe what he's really trying to say is that he created Star Wars as a means for you to worship him, because he thinks he's God, and then he will never have to answer to anyone. In George's words, religion is propaganda pieced together, and Star Wars was propaganda pieced together. What does it really sound like he's saying? One more thing is, a few years ago I came across an interview of his with a reporter where he was describing Star Wars as this romantic swashbuckling tale. Okay, where specifically he's, talking about pirates. And it's ironic that his cousin was standing in the front yard with all of us kids when we were playing pirates, and I said Jedi Knights in the Force, and went and told George, and that's when he started coming to my house every day, just about trying to get me to come to his house at 5707 Robinwood Road and get on the phone with him. Ironic that interview disappeared off the internet. I've been looking for it. I can't find it. It's possibly it's there, but I haven't been able to find it. Just thinking, 5 more years this chump would have had y'all buffaloed for a half a century. If no one ever spilled the beans on him, that is. Think I'm wrong about him mocking God's will? The Force, he suddenly attributed it to midi-chlorians in the first movie, which was actually the fourth movie. Never said anything about it in episode 4, 5, and 6, which are, of course, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and The Return of the Jedi. So he attributed it to little bugs. Little bugs. You take care of yourselves now. Good night, thief, fraud, and chump.